Hafa everyone, welcome to D16 Tonight. I'm Isa Baza, your host for this week's program. Joining us live in studio are our senatorial candidates, Republicans Jim Espaldon and Eric Palacios, and Democrat Regine Biscoe Lee. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us tonight. As you may know, our show is completely interactive. Almost all of our questions come from our viewers who are watching us live on Facebook. Before we begin, I'll give you each about 30 seconds for some introductory comments. So we'll start with Eric.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, and thanks to KOM. I decided to run because I wanted to continue the work that I had been doing at Guam EPA for almost 5 years now, which is protecting our environment and helping to build our economy. Straddling that very fine line between the two because of where we live in the world is extremely important. And so I want to bring that to the legislature, and I hope that I'm fortunate to be given that privilege.
Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I'm Jim Espaldon. I thank you for having us tonight. I've been here quite a while. We moved here back in '63. I've seen all the changes. I think we're going through a tremendous period right now in our island's history. There's going to be a lot of change coming. We're seeing it right now. I am excited to be a part of it. I know that we need to make sure we blaze the trail properly, and so I'm putting myself out there to help this process.
And Regine?
Hafa, I'm Regine Biscoe Lee, and I'm running for senator to promote strong families and a strong Guam. I'm really proud of both my Filipino and my Chamorro heritage, and I'm looking forward to sharing my thoughts and experiences as a policy advisor, as a community advocate, and as a small business owner with all of you tonight. So thanks so much for tuning in.
Okay, so we'll jump straight into some of our viewer-submitted questions. We have Elizabeth Agagi on Facebook asking, what is your priority issue that you plan to work on if elected? So we'll start this time with Jim.
That's a difficult question because we can give 100 different answers. When Eric talks about the environment, that's important. When you start talking about the expansion of the economy and even the federal issues that are coming down, I think we need to engage. I can't pinpoint one. However, I do know that it all starts with the budgetary process. One of the things that I've worked on this year, and if it doesn't get passed this year, I'd like to introduce it again, is to protect the special funds that we've created for the various projects that need to be done. One of the things that we've done or the legislature has done over the years is really raid these special funds. And so the money that was supposed to go to its intended purposes are not getting there. So I'd like to continue along that path.
Okay, Regine?
I really want to focus on addressing all of our long-standing issues comprehensively. So really taking a look at short and long-term goals and establishing benchmarks for success. I think that failure to plan is a plan to fail. So I think we really need to take a look at some of our issues with regard to public safety, with regard to health and wellness, our environment, as well as really giving our opportunity for education and employment and opportunities for everybody on Guam. So I think all those three things are important, but really looking at it comprehensively, really looking at it from a big picture perspective.
Thank you. Eric?
So I want to focus on a lot of issues that really take our island Guam into consideration first and foremost. It's the only island we will ever have. It's where our children live. It's where our grandchildren will live. And we need to do everything that we can to protect her. So, I think the more we take care of our island, if tourism is our #1 industry, they come to Guam to see our beautiful waters and breathe our clean air and stroll through our beautiful lush green jungles. It only makes sense to take care of her. Then almost automatically our economy will continue to maintain the upward trend that it's on right now. But I think that we can actually even boost it up even more by protecting Guam.
Okay, thanks everyone. We're jumping into another viewer-submitted question. This is from Joelle Nicole Resurrection. She's asking, what can any of you propose for better health care for people like myself? I didn't qualify for DPHSS assistance. The health insurances that are being offered are too costly. We have to meet deductibles and still have to pay. So we'll start this off with Regine.
I think that failing to plan is a plan to fail. So we really need to get a hold of healthcare planning and making sure that we are taking in data from our very unique patients out there. We have a lot of really unique challenges here on Guam, so we really need to be able to capture data. We need to make sure, especially for federal funding, federal grant funding, and that'll help us to increase access for people. It'll help us to make sure that we are providing quality care to the individuals that need it the most.
Okay, Eric?
You know, I mentioned last night at the GMA forum that one thing that I'd like to look at is the threshold that currently exists, where you have to have a certain number of employees before an insurance company can come in, or you'll be eligible for some health insurance. Maybe I'm looking at it very simplistically, but I think if insurance companies insured more people, they could actually bring down the cost per unit or per policy. And so what that magic number is, I'm not sure at this point, but it's something that, you know, if I'm elected, I will seriously look into. Maybe it's 10 employees and then they'd be eligible for insurance. And if more people are insured, I mean, the policy, I imagine, would go down, the premiums.
Thank you. And Jim?
I'm not sure what the her position is right now. Whoever sent that in. But again, there are programs out there. I don't know why she didn't qualify for public assistance over at Department of Public Health. But yes, there are some thoughts, and there is some discussion about taking a look at universal health care, and one of the for our island, because if you really think about it, there's only 180,000 of us here. We're not talking millions of people, and when you try to leverage the monies that we do have, and probably even the assistance from the federal government through Medicaid and Medicare and other programs like that, there might be a way to do this. But more than that, I think there is also an opportunity to engage the federal government in terms of reimbursing us for what they owe us, and I think that will definitely help us with the costs.
Well, definitely a lot of interesting answers to think about. And up next, we have another viewer-submitted question. This is from Mark Uggan. He's one of our conservation officers. He's asking, what is your stance on resource protection, and how do you plan to help enforcement? So we'll start off with Eric.
One of the first bills that I'd like to introduce, the intent of it will be to provide our resource agencies with funding so that they can hire more people and buy the equipment that they need to go out and do the jobs that we expect them to do as a community. And so there is a very viable funding source out there that has never been tapped. And I'd like to put that forward for the people to consider and discuss with us, and hopefully, you know, enact it into law so that it'll generate at least $1.5 million a year between Guam EPA, Department of Agriculture, Parks and Recreation. They do good work, and they need a little help, and it's about time that we truly invested in our resource agencies.
Jim?
You know, that's a difficult question to ask. All these questions are difficult to answer within a very limited time frame. But I do want to note that I did pass legislation, and it's now into law, which is basically the Guam Pesticides Act. And the reason why we introduced that was basically to make sure that we protect, first of all, our food sources. If we're growing our foods here, we want to make sure that the chemical toxicity will not be on those foods. The other thing, it was a measure to protect our waterlands, because we do know that there's a lot of farming going on over the northern area, and the danger there is that you would have seepage if these chemicals are not used properly. And so that's one of the initiatives that we've already introduced the law. Going forward, there's so many more things, but again, I think Eric is right. We need to engage with the agencies and the stakeholders who are out there in terms of our natural resources and try to figure out what is their priority. I know that one of the issues right now is the reefs. There's a lot of damage being done by our tourists, and so there is an effort to take a look at how we can mitigate that.
Okay, thank you. Regine?
I also want to echo the comments that have already been made with regard to resource protection and making sure that our officers have the training, the equipment, and all the resources that they need to continue to do their jobs. So I think that's really important. I also think that we need to continue to educate our community so that they can also take part in being a part of the solution. So we really want to encourage more outreach and education with regard to some of these resource issues, and making sure that we're all doing our part to making sure that Guam is safe and clean and healthy, and that we continue to protect our incredible natural resources.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to have to take a quick break, but stay tuned. We'll continue our discussions with the candidates in just a bit.